Okay, welcome to another edition of Jazz Smack Postgame, where the Jazz went into Los Angeles and lost to the Clippers tonight. And that is another win for the Jazz, in all honesty. So let's talk about it.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
So this was a reasonably close game through, the first half and then some way into the third quarter, and it kind of got out of hand in the fourth quarter. The Jazz were missing some key players tonight. Obviously, the Jazz were trying to rest players in order to facilitate losses. And so Lauri didn't play, John Collins didn't play, Walker didn't play. So the entire starting front court was out for the Jazz. And that's obviously a major impact for the Jazz in terms of the play and their success rate and all of that. And also, Sexton is still out. Cody did play tonight. So some positive. And also, KJ Martin was on the bench. So it appears, as of right now, that he is going to be with the Jazz for the remainder of the year. That's the one guy out of all the guys that got pushed their way through these ancillary trades that they did to get all these second rounders. That seems like the one guy that's going to stick with the roster for the remainder of the year. And all those other guys, it appears right now, are all gone. Obviously, Mo Bamba is gone immediately, but even though some of those guys are like Josh Richardson or appear on the roster if you look at some of the statistical sites like NBA.com, KJ Martin seems like he's the only one that's going to be with the team moving forward. So I assume there will be opportunities to watch him play actual NBA minutes, considering, look who the Jazz are actually giving minutes to the last month. All sorts of people. So anyway, that's the situation right now, and the Jazz did lose tonight, and that's a really good positive thing because we're going to look at the Tankathon statistics later in this episode, and the Jazz still, they're in the hunt for one of the three worst records where they're on track to get that, and that needs to be the ultimate goal.
Yeah, big win tonight by losing. That's like the positive out of all this is that we had to lose. There was a lot of other important games going on at the same time. Unfortunately, they all turned against us. New Orleans lost, although they were up most of the game. Minnesota won, even though that they were down quite a bit of the game, and they won easily. So unfortunately, we didn't pick up anything today. Like Washington, honestly, I looked at Washington. We're actually right on the heels of Washington now. And if Marcus Spark plays, I would say that actually is a better team. They did lose Valanciunas. That's a loss. But losing Kuzma is not a loss, right? So they may actually be better with Smart. I think we're only 2 in the loss column different from them. Is that right? Maybe 3. So we're within striking range. The challenge is we're nowhere near as bad a team. Let's face it, if we play our guys, we're way better than Washington. So I don't think we're going to catch them, but we have to make sure we don't drop further. So I am encouraged 2 games in a row that we lost. So that's the good, but let's talk about the game.
Yeah, let's go ahead and actually look at the box score because obviously I want the Jazz to lose. Anybody who's realistic wants the Jazz to lose, but it's how they lose is my issue with it, and I have an issue with what happened tonight. So anyway, let's go ahead and look at the box score from tonight's game. And the things that I want to point out initially, the 2 people who played the most minutes, Jordan Clarkson and Keontae George, the 2 people who consumed the most offensive possessions, Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George. Now, this needs to be a time when the Jazz are developing younger players. It's really important. The Jazz are losing games, purposely resting veteran players in order to facilitate losses, and they need to develop those young players. The game started out, Clarkson came down, and he shot the first 5 shots and completely oblivious to the other players on the court. And Isaiah Collier did not have the ball in his hands. And Isaiah Collier needs to have the ball in his hands. It's just not right. And then you look at the box score. So Jordan Clarkson he takes 19 shots, but he also a couple of free throws and a couple of turnovers. And he scores 24 points, and he's minus 19. Now, I'm not big on the plus minus. I think it's a stupid statistic, but he's minus 19. Then you go down to Keontae, and the guy is 7 for 14 from the field. He shoots 5 free throws. He has 4 turnovers, and he is minus 39 in 33 minutes. Now, I'm not a big believer in that statistic, but that is a horrific number. I mean, minus 39 in 33 minutes? I mean, it's almost impossible. So that's my problem. The Jazz, they need to actually run offense with Collier running the offense. That needs to be Jordan just dribbling around indiscriminately and jacking up shots and constantly searching his own field goal attempts and his own points. That's not what the Jazz should be about the remainder of this year. Jordan is not going to be with the team when the team is competitive, and he has no asset value for the Jazz moving forward. He just doesn't. So that's my complaint with tonight. I want Isaiah Collier with the ball in his hands, running an offense, an actual offense.
Yeah, I wonder, they traded Schroeder for not fair value. The reason they traded Schroeder for not fair value is that he's a free agent at the end of the year. So hanging on to him to the end of the year doesn't make any sense because you're not going to get any more because he's not your asset, right? So they traded him for what they could get for him, even though it wasn't fair market value. I think they should look at the same for Jordan, right? He's not going to be with the team. We all like Jordan. We think he's a fun guy. We like all of that, right? There's no question. We like that. But the reality is he's old enough. He's not going to be part of the future. We need to be developing people. Now, does that mean that all the guys that we're developing are going to be on the team? No, it's just like Oklahoma City. A lot of them are not going to make it. That's okay. If we can help them, that they find another job and we find out that they're not the guys like we did with Ochai, great, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't do us any good. Like, I agree with you. Jordan came and he was hot to start the game, but that doesn't, like Hardy's principles, play hard and pass. The reason he wants you to pass is it gets everybody involved in the game. When the only guy shooting is Jordan Clarkson, everybody's standing around watching, it doesn't do you any good. Like Hardy, there's 2 pets on this team. It's Hardy and Keontae. Okay, you made Keontae the starter 10 games in, even though he didn't earn it, and then you bench him. So now he's sulking, and maybe you feel like you have to give him minutes. But why did you start him 10 games into the last season? It makes no sense at all that you started the guy when he didn't deserve it. He's not a point guard. He's not efficient, etc. Now, can he be? Of course. He can develop into it, and we're rooting for the kid. But, right now, you brought up his minus, plus minus. We can pull it up next time because I don't have it with me. You know who's the biggest plus minus negative on the team this year? Keontae by far. It's not even close. It's Keontae by far. So, that's not the guy that should be shooting. Give some other people a shot, right? And we need to, when Markkanen plays again, right? He struggled this year. We need to get his trade asset value back up. So in case you want to move from him this season, he has asset. He is an asset, not Jordan Clarkson, right? So I'm equally frustrated with it.
Yeah, that's the problem, is Jordan will not have asset value to the Jazz regardless of what happens. It's just wasted development time for the younger players. Playing him and watching him do this, he's a ball stopper, he's a continuity killer. That's what he is. And It was a wrecking ball from the beginning. I honestly, I almost turned the game off. I mean, it was just that frustrating, that first few minutes, that first quarter. And I go, this is absurd. And it was just ridiculous. Oh,
Yeah, well, Bryce got 14 minutes again too.
yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's another
Yeah.
one. Is Bryce is going to get in Hardy's doghouse. Okay, he turned the ball over a couple of times. He double dribbled, which the refs completely missed, which I'm going to get into. Like my views, like how in the world did you miss that? We all saw it, and like the terrible referees that are now in the NBA. But like you're not as positive on Bryce as I am. And honestly, I'm kind of lukewarm because I don't know, but he's a great shooter. Am I disappointed that he's gained weight during the season? Yeah, I'm absolutely disappointed. That's your career, pal. Like, how could you let that happen? But the reality is, give him a shot. 14 minutes is not enough. Give him a shot. And I worry that he's going on this trend that he's going to be the DNPs again, and it's going to be Keontae and Jordan and the game. It's 2 years now. We've been seeing exactly the same thing out of this.
Yeah. Yep. It's really frustrating. So let's talk about the positives from the box score. Kyle Filipowski had some great passes. I mean, his ability to see the floor, like I said, from passing the Jazz so desperately need Kyle and Collier because they are the two guys on the team that are without question plus passers. And both of them see the floor really well. They're willing passers. They're competent passers. And his ability, he hit Keontae with a couple of just fantastic bounce passes in the lane. Mm-hmm. And it's just superb. I mean, absolutely picture perfect. That's exactly the pass at the right time in the right place, and he did it exactly correctly. So his box score tonight, 5 for 7 from the field, 2 for 3 from the line, 1 for 2 from 3, 4 offensive rebounds, 4 defensive rebounds, 8 total rebounds, 5 assists, 2 turnovers, 13 points. I mean, that's a great box score. And he actually got minutes tonight too, nearly 30 with Collins and Lauri and Kessler out of the game. So Kyle picks up a lot of those minutes, which was the theory when the Jazz made the trade with the Clippers, that Kyle would get some of those minutes, and especially with resting players in order to facilitate the losses, he's going to get minutes because obviously the Jazz aren't going to rest Kyle. They want him to play. So that's a really positive. And then Johnny Juzang, he goes home to LA and he has a really nice game too. And he gets big minutes again, 25 minutes, and he shoots the ball really well. So really positive, 19 points, 7-11 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals. Absolutely awesome game by Johnny.
Yeah. We've talked about this before. He's kind of our new George Niang, right? And I feel bad George got traded again from Cleveland. I feel really bad for the guy. But I think Johnny is that, and I want him on our team, right? I don't think he's ever going to be a starter. I don't think he's ever going to get a ton of minutes, but he's a guy he's a consistent, great shooter with a quick release. So let's keep him on our team. And honestly, I kind of see Sensabaugh the same way. He may or may not be there, but I think they have a role if they prove themselves out. And Juzang has. So I'm thrilled about that. And seeing Kyle play is great, right? It's great. So he's developing. His shot is smooth. I think his shot has always been smooth, but I think he lacks some confidence on it. It seems like he's getting more confidence on his 3-point shot. So let's keep playing him. I mean, I think it's good. He had a good game today, and I'm glad he got the 30-ish minutes.
Yeah, it's all positive. He's one of the guys that definitely needs to play because he's absolutely shown that he can be a significant piece of the Jazz moving forward, whether that's a starting rotation player or a guy who gets meaningful minutes off the bench. I think he's definitely shown that he is in that conversation for either of those roles. So, yeah, he just needs to continue to get minutes consistently. So that's the hope. That's my hope, at least.
Yeah. And let me say one thing about, because I've been thinking about a comment I made yesterday about Collier. Like I told you, what you agreed with. There's two guys in the young group that are proven they can be part of the future. And I don't want to overstate something. I've seen some amazing things by Collier. He has unbelievable instincts. His passing skills are fantastic. In every game, he seems to get more confident. And I'm really bullish about him, and I'm really excited about him. Having said that, what do I think that Collier's like proven so far? Like, because he hasn't been starting long. So what has he proven so far? I think Collier's proven that he's an NBA rotation player. I think that's what he's proven. Does that mean where we think he's going to be? No, but I think that's like I've overstayed. Like he's going to be part of it. We don't know yet because he's still got to like learn to shoot. Right? He can finish around the rim now. He's good. He's got some incredible speed, just like Colin Sexton. We got two of those guys now that can just blow past people, and that's great. But he's got to learn to shoot. So I don't want to do like the Keontae and like anoint him like, oh, he's arrived, right? Because he's got to learn to shoot to be an NBA starter. And I think, you know, Kessler, on the other hand, I think has proven that he's more than a starter. I think he's proven he's a good starter. Now, even if he never improves his offensive game, I think he's a good starter on a team now. We just want him to continue to develop so he becomes like a star or a very good. But I wanted to go back to like Collier because I think, you know, I think Collier is going to be really good. But right now, what I think he's proven is he's an NBA rotation player.
Yeah, he still has a way to go to be a plus starting level player. He has development work. It's not going to be this year. It's probably not going to be next year. But that third year, I think he has an opportunity to be a plus starter. So I think that's what they need to. They just need to be consistent on the development work, especially this offseason, and we'll see where he ends up.
Yeah, do click on Isaiah, and if you can look at his last 10 games. I want to look at something I was looking earlier today. Do you have his last 10 games?
I don't know where is that on NBA.com.
Oh, okay, maybe it's not. Let me do it on ESPN. Okay, so last 10 games and 46.7% from the field, 24.1 from three, 77 from the free throw line, and 8.5 assists. So 8.5 assists in 31 minutes a game. So that's what he's trending while he's still trying to learn. 8.5 assists. Now, what I want to like give as a comparison to that is the leading assist guys in the NBA. Trae Young at 11.4 in 36 minutes a game. Jokic at 10.3. Cade Cunningham at 9.4, also 36 minutes a game. LeBron James, which is just shocking, 9 a game at 35 minutes a game. James Harden is next at 8.6. So where Collier has been in 31 minutes a game, if he were to do that over the course of a season, he would be 6th in the NBA in assists. That is incredible. That is incredible what this guy is doing. I mean, you've like mentioned it many times. Like he's got an uncanny ability to assist. Yeah, he's turning the ball over a lot, more than he should. But Cade Cunningham is a turnover machine. Like Cade's playing great this year, but he's a turnover machine. Collier's better than that already in the first year. And this is like still playing limited minutes, learning. What do you think this guy's going to be next year? I see this guy as a 10 assist plus game guy. I mean, he could be in the top 2 to 3 in the league. He's that good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Without question, he could be that. And I found the last 5 on the screen and on NBA.com, and you can see that those assist numbers are almost 10 a game. And you look at those 5 games that he played, and his plus minus, and like I said, we don't like this number. I think it's a stupid number, but he's only negative in his time in the game in one of those games. And that was at Phoenix. He was a -6. Other than that, his time on the court, he's been a plus player. While he was on the court, the Jazz were plus in every single game. And his shooting is improving. Like, his 3-point shooting is obviously really bad. But the other stuff, he's getting better in the mid-range, and he's getting better around the rim. He's being more selective about when he attacks with his own offense compared to trying to attack to get other people involved elsewhere. So all of those things, he's getting better and better, and I just want to see somewhat consistent improvement through the rest of the year. That's what I ask for him, and that's what I hope for him.
Yeah. Well, you like Castle better than I do. And honestly, I don't have an opinion really on Castle other than to say I look at his stats and his 3-point percentage is about the same. And Scoot Henderson's was terrible last year, and Scoot's shooting like 36 this year. And Scoot's playing better. So I'm never going to deny that Collier has to work on his shot and may even have to restructure it, as you said. But he's still a first-year player that's, 19 years old? So he's got time to do it. Like Jason Kidd, remember how bad he was when he came in? Never was a pretty shot. Never.
It took him,
but he was effective.
Yeah, it took him a long time to develop that too. I mean, that was a process over his entire career. When it got to the end, I mean, he basically shot a set shot from 3, but he shot it at such a percentage that it was impactful in a positive way. So he didn't shoot a ton of threes, but he was good enough from 3 to where people couldn't just leave him anymore. And when he did shoot it, it was good enough that, I mean, it was a positive for the team overall, considering his percentage. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys who never get better. That's just the reality of it. There's a lot of guys who just don't get better. But then, unlike what that goofy radio announcer for the Jazz says, there are still a lot of guys who do get better, and a lot of prominent guys that have been in the NBA that have gotten a lot better. So I'm not going to write anybody off. I think people can get better, but they have to commit to it, and you can't go out there and spend a bunch of time practicing incorrectly. That's my point on it. You have to practice the proper mechanics. And so he needs to tweak the mechanics to get it right. He can't just he can't put a bunch of work in doing exactly what he's doing now. That's what I don't want him to do.
Yeah, well, we're rooting for him. And I think everything looks positive. I mean, everything looks positive except his shot. And honestly, in the mid-range, he's relatively effective. So, there's a ton of positives there. So, but let's just not oversell him, because we don't want to do like, okay, it's the 10th game into the last season. Let's put Keontae in and tell everybody he's the number one option. Like, the other team is like thrilled to hear that, because having the number one option shooting less than 40% from the field means they're going to win every game. So yeah, the other team's like, huh, what? Like, number one option? Really? That's your number one option? But so I just don't want to do that with Collier. Collier, you got to work your butt off. But if you do, I mean, we are incredibly excited about Collier.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm incredibly excited about Flip too, because I think there's something there too. I was really happy to see Cody there. Honestly, Cody has a longer trajectory from where he is now, but the only way to go is like to take his lumps, and let's take the lumps with him, right? Let's get him time. I'm glad he's playing. He's going to struggle. That's okay, right? We're okay with it as long as he plays hard. Oh, like Hardy plays hard and passes.
Yeah. I still want him to get a bunch of G League minutes too. I think he needs to go back and forth. I want him to get some minutes with the Jazz, but I want him to get some big minutes with the G League team where he's a featured player. And I think Isaiah Thomas is still there right now. So he's probably hoisting up the most shots. He's probably the Jordan Clarkson of that G League team at the moment. But still, I think there's obviously playing time that's going to be in Cody's future with the Stars. But anyway, so that's the box score for tonight, and let's look at the Tankathon stuff right now. So this is where the Jazz currently stand. They've lost 2 games in a row. Their last 10, they're 2-8. There's 3 other teams that are 2-8, and then Washington is 3-7 in their last 10. So the Jazz right now are sitting in the third worst record, but they're tied with New Orleans for number of wins, and that's the number. The wins column is what we really need to watch. We need to watch those the wins. So they're tied in New Orleans for the second worst, and then there's Charlotte's 1 game behind them, and then beyond that, obviously Toronto is 4 games ahead of the Jazz in the win column, which is good. So that gives the Jazz a buffer between themselves and Toronto, a good number of games. So we're on track. That's the important thing. Right now, we are on pace to maximize our chances of getting the number 1 pick.
Yeah, and the Tankathon doesn't have this. I thought they did. So I just looked on ESPN. The differential of Washington, you said this the other day, it's by far the worst, minus 13.7. So there's no way we're going to get that. The second worst is New Orleans at minus 8.6. We're at minus 7.3. So that's why we really got to watch New Orleans. They just traded away Ingram. Yeah, he didn't play anyhow, so maybe it doesn't matter. But they're going to be tanking. And just based upon their differential, they're a worse team than us. And so I don't want to, yes, the bottom 3 get a 14% chance, but also there's a cap, the worst record you have. So the worst record is the worst you can do as a number 5 pick. I think the second worst is a number 6 pick. And I think the third is a number 7 pick. So we really want to move up to that second slot. So we lock ourselves into a worse pick. And honestly, New Orleans is brutal. Even with Zion playing, they're brutal. And so we really got to watch that. Honestly, the one thing I did like about what Hardy did this game, unlike the Phoenix game, he pulled guys. Let one guy play, put the others down. Then the next game, let another one play, put the others down. We have to play that game because we didn't trade the guys. We can't play Markkanen, Kessler, and Collins Sexton when we're there all together. They're too good, right? We can't play them together. It's unfortunate, but that's the situation we're in. So yeah, if you go to Oklahoma City, you can play them all. Doesn't matter. You go to Boston, you can play them all.
Yeah.
But a team like the Clippers that are, inconsistent, you got to be selective. And the first half, we were competitive with them. They're going to get Ben Simmons too, which is going to be interesting. That's true.
What the Jazz need to do moving forward is when they're on the road playing a decent team who is playing with basically their full roster, the Jazz can then play with their full roster. But if they're playing on the road against a decent team with a decent record, and that team is sitting a bunch of players, then the Jazz also need to take that into account and sit guys. So it needs to be a situational thing. The Jazz just can't go into situations where it's a game that they really should lose and then overmatch the competition because of the opponent injuries or their sitting players or whatever, and play the Jazz's full roster. I mean, they can't do that. They just have to not do that. I know it's tempting at times, but they can't do that.
Yeah, or another wasted season, right?
Yeah,
I guess they could get lucky in the odds, but let's not try to get lucky.
Yeah,
or we have to be lucky. Anybody who gets number 1 pick is lucky because that's part of it. But let's give ourselves the best chance to get that, right? I mean, let's maximize our odds of getting lucky.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look how many games we played so far this year. I mean, we're at 51 games. So we have 31 games left. I mean, so we basically tanked for the first 51 games. Now, I don't want to ruin that tank doing something stupid for the last 31. That doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't do anything positive for the franchise. The only thing we should be doing right now is developing the young guys, making sure that the guys with big asset value moving forward that are under contract continue to get numbers, and then we lose games. Those are the three things.
Yep. If we're going to trade any of three guys that are our best players right now, we have to make sure their numbers look good.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we have to play them all at the same time, but the games they play, we have to make them look good because we want to maximize their value. And honestly, it's not only maximize our value for us, it's maximize our value for them and their future contracts. Like Lauri is locked up. He's got his contract. Colin doesn't. John Collins doesn't, right? Collins underpaid. John Collins is probably a market. Like, we want them to have numbers that they can get a better next contract, right? I mean, that's fair to them. So let's do that.
In the games that they do play, they need to play significant minutes so their numbers can be good. So that on an average basis, their numbers are really good. That's what we want. We want those guys to have good numbers on an average basis, not in the total points scored for the season, but on the average per game played. That's what we want. Those are the numbers we're interested in.
Yeah. Well, I think tonight, I don't know. This is a guess. I'm speculating. I don't know. My sense is after the last game that in all intents and purposes, other than Grayson Allen, just unreal, right? I went back and watched that game, the whole game. Unreal, right? Grayson hit some fantastic shots. Lauri probably should have missed the last one, but that's on Hardy. It wasn't on, Lauri is taking direction from the bench, right? Because if it would have bounced for a rebound, right, there's the likelihood of
what you do is you purposely miss it. You purposely clank it off the front of the rim you just throw it really hard at the front of the rim, shoot it really hard at the front of the rim, and then there's basically you're screwed.
and then if there's a half or a 3/4 court heave that goes in, you lose the game. Okay, we lost the game anyhow, but you don't give them a chance to advance the ball, set a play. They set a great play, et cetera. But it is what it is. But my guess is that Ainge probably went to Hardy and said, dude, you can't do that, right? You can't, we don't want to waste 2/3 of the season that we've been losing by winning these games. You can't do that. So the hardest thing for us right now is we're trying to manage Hardy. Like, Hardy, you got to watch who you're playing. It's unfortunate. Yeah, it would have been easier if you would have traded some of those guys away. We didn't. So now you're in the situation you are that we can't play them all together. They're too good. I would love to watch them play, but I would more likely, maximize my draft odds because this season has been tough for all of us. But what we really want is to see if we can get a high pick. Hopefully Minnesota's rolls into the lottery. We get another pick, et cetera. And, we trade some of these guys in the offseason where we can get some more picks, right, with it. So let's hope. But we'll see. Lakers up next. Luka is going to be his first game playing. So maybe that's when you can play the guys.
Yeah, and actually that's going to be – I'm actually looking forward to seeing what happens with that. I think I think that that's going to be a very, very heavily watched game. I'm sure it's going to be the most watched game of that night in the NBA.
Yeah, so, it was actually the tickets were going very high. I heard this from Mike. He got both Indiana. Was it today? Indiana and the Jazz. The Jazz was really cheap because he was going to start with Indiana, and fortunately he has both the tickets. But he said he way overpaid for the Indiana game. But honestly, I watched the Dallas game today because I was like really curious. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched like half of the game. I think they're actually going to be pretty good this year. Long term, it was like a boneheaded move. Dallas is not going to win the championship, so it's a boneheaded move for that. But for this season, I think that they're actually going to be pretty good because you have Kyrie as a really good point guard. Kyrie's playing excellent this year, just fantastic. Max Christie is probably better than Grimes that they traded away. They got some other pieces there. So it'll be interesting. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they actually do better this year, but the challenge is they're still not winning the championship. And then
Yeah.
their future they completely threw away with
Yeah.
this boneheaded trade.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't make that trade. That's the bottom line. You can't make that trade. You can trade Luka, but you can't trade him for what they got in return. You just can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm worst trade ever, or at least
Yeah.
I can remember.
All right.
So do you want to talk briefly about the?
Yeah. So here are the statistics. So you put this together. So go ahead and take it.
So what I did with here is I was just very curious that I've watched highlights of Cooper Flagg. I watched highlights of Dylan Harper. I watched highlights of Ace Bailey. I watched some of Demon because he's a local guy, just curious. And then the other guys haven't watched it all. So what I did is I went through just various people, like their mock drafts, and figured out like nine people, 8 people that are projected that may be in there. They're really the only ones that are kind of consistently said would be Flagg, Harper, Bailey, Edgecombe, and this next guy, Kasparis. The rest are really like Demon in one draft is 15th. But the thing I wanted to like point out about this is that we are going to, we don't know yet, but it's kind of fun to start watching these guys. There's people that do the whole draft analysis and watching all their games. I don't have time to do that, and I don't have to worry about it yet. But what I thought was interesting is just kind of take a look at how these guys are performing. And honestly, Flagg is unbelievable. He plays great defense. He assists. His three-point shot has improved dramatically over the year. He's still not great. He doesn't shoot a ton of three-pointers. His field goals are good. He rebounds. He's just based upon his stats. And his team is 2 losses. Yeah, and I know one guy doesn't make the team, but 2 losses. This guy is good. Is he like a Wemby? That's hard to, he's not 7'3.5", 7'4", but he's good. And I think head and shoulders, based upon just looking at his numbers to date, above the rest of the players.
Yeah, I haven't watched these guys yet either. I think I watched a little bit of one game of Flagg. I haven't had time. But I hope to do that. But of the guys so far, obviously Cooper is the guy. I think the other interesting guy on that list, as of right now, considering I don't know anything, I'm not a fan of Demon, and obviously he is the Utah guy, BYU. But I want to see Ace Bailey play, and I just haven't seen him play. So I'm not going to pass judgment on him until I see him play, but his measurables are really interesting. So that's why I want to see that guy play. But we'll see. It's just from a outsider's perspective, looking at this as of right now, yeah, Cooper Flagg seems to be the number 1 pick right now.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I pulled their height off of the websites. You can be completely wrong, where they specifically, until you actually see the measurables, like Ace Bailey listed at 6'10", is he 6'10" or is he 6'7", right? We don't know. And some of them won't even go to the combine because they don't want to just, that's what Keontae did for some reason. There was something about it he didn't want to disclose. So the thing I wanted to point out about Harper and Bailey, and I've told you this, their team is 12-11. So allegedly you got 2 of the top 3 draft picks on one team, and they're 12-11. I got to tell you, that bugs me. Does it mean that maybe the rest of their team is terrible? Like, I don't know. I haven't watched it, but I you look at the records of all these other teams, and their team is 12-11, yet it's got 2 of the top 3 players on the team. It just is something. Now, Harper's interesting because he's playing point guard, 4.1 assists, not terrible, right? But clearly not a standout. 3-point shooting, 35.1. Not terrible, but not fantastic, right? So as a point guard, I don't know. Like, and you can't teach 6'10" if Ace Bailey is really 6'10". He can create his own shot. He's got pretty good handle. So Ace Bailey looks, honestly, I'd be excited if we got Ace Bailey. I will say though, he's got the Markkanen, one assist a game. Ace Bailey ain't passing it if he's getting the ball. And if he does try to pass, he doesn't seem to have skills to pass it. Because, you look down this list, I guess Newell at the bottom, 1 assist, 2. Everybody's got more assists than him. So he's got one thing on his mind and doesn't seem to have that skill set. Now, could he develop it because he's 19? Of course he could, right? I mean, but his free throw shooting is not fantastic either, which often's a kind of a signal on the 3-point shot. Interestingly, though, his 3-point shot is more accurate than Harper's, this year. So he's picked his up. They shoot about the same number of 3-point attempts per game. So that's encouraging. Honestly, if I were going to do it just based purely on these stats, I put Bailey over Harper. I think it's hard to teach size. And when I'm seeing here, rebounds good, shooting good, except for free throws, ability to create your own shot, really good, right? I mean, Lauri's trying to learn that. So he's got some really skills, but by and far, it's Cooper Flagg. It's the top guy in this draft, but it'll be interesting. I mean, we can look at it after the season's over when we know who we're going to draft and be more careful about it. But I thought it's, I just wanted to take a look at these guys at a snapshot.
Yeah, I mean, look at these numbers is interesting. I just want to eyeball it. That's my big thing. I just want to eyeball it. But you can't just eyeball it with the highlights too. Obviously, you need to actually watch games to see the both, because the highlights just emphasize the positives, and there's a lot of negatives in games, and you need to see those negatives, and you can't just watch one game too. That's a problem. It's really time consuming to actually go through and evaluate these guys, because you got to watch a bunch of games of each one, and when they have both good games and bad games, you can get a balanced view of exactly their kind of get an idea of their mannerisms, how hard they play. There's just so many things that go into it, and it's a very time consuming process. But certainly the statistical data is important to go over that and look at it. And those heights, like you said, I remember I remember when Gordon Hayward was playing at Butler, and the announcers would say, "Oh, he's 6'10". Gordon Hayward wasn't 6'10". He measured out of the combine at 6'6" 3/4. He was never even close to 6'10", and people kept saying, "Oh, he's 6'9", he's 6'10". He was never 6'9" or 6'10". I mean, he's basically a decent sized guy for a small forward in the NBA. And he had short arms too. Like these heights, I don't know if they're accurate. I'm guessing that they're not. And whatever the announcers say during the games too, whatever they verbalize, I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all.
Yeah, well, they don't have any better data. I mean, at the end of the day, other than standing next to guys and trying to guess, okay, this guy's bigger or smaller than I think. I mean, the reality is, if you were a prospect, you try to pump up your height too.
Oh yeah,
it could only help you, right? So we understand the game. Now, once it gets to the NBA, they should list their actual height, and that's fake too. And I've never really understood that. How Barkley could list himself in 6'8", and he's 6'4". Like, why is that good for fans? I've never understood that in the NBA. Is like, make them actually list the accurate.
Yeah, just measure. Yeah, just measure each one without their shoes on legitimately, and put that number up so that we all know exactly how big all these guys are. I mean, just blatantly lying, doesn't do anyone any good. It's just stupid.
Yeah, like you say that Wembyana is bigger, looks noticeably bigger and longer than anybody else in the league. I agree with that. But he's not listed that bigger than other people in the league. And I'm like, I got to tell you, I'm watching him on the court, and just watching that guy be able to block anybody that comes near him. with mediocre technique, and I'm like, something's missing here. So why hide that? Look, Silver's got a lot of other problems bigger than that, but that's just always been a head scratcher for me. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, honestly, I'm more impressed with an Adrian Dantley if he's 6'3", being able to go inside with the big guys and score. I actually would like to know that. So I'm like, man, that guy's not only good, he's like really good, because he can go against a guy a foot taller than him and still score over him with his skill set. I mean, that's good to know, right?
Yeah.
So it's yeah, but we're gonna have much more. In your point of, I've always been terrible at picking out who's going to be good in drafts. Why? Because you actually have to spend a ton of time, like you said, watching their games, looking at their measurables. And I don't have, the time or patience to do that. And so, I'm looking at a snapshot. That's all. There's people that do this for a living, and great. We'll listen to them. They have more experience at it, that they take the time and effort, and they're going to have a much better perspective than we are. And hopefully we're number one, that we have the choice of who to take.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was younger and I had all this extra time to watch basketball and stuff, I had a better idea of what was going on. But now it's next to impossible to evaluate these guys on such limited game video. It's impossible. You got to put in the time. That's all there is to it. Anyway,
Okay.
Well, I think we're going to call it a night for this broadcast, and it was a good night. The Jazz took another loss, so we will leave it at that, and we will talk to everybody after the next game, which is the Luka game, and that should be an interesting one. We can talk about the Lakers, exactly what happened, as well as the Jazz. So we will talk to everybody after the next game, and everybody have a great evening, and we will talk to you later.